Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to do some experimenting between watercolor ground versus clear gesso and also white watercolor ground versus regular white gesso. I thought it'd be interesting to see how similar these products are and whether or not it's really worth the extra money to keep both in your craft room if you already have one or the other. So for my first impressions, I have primed a bunch of scrapbook paper and book pages with the Daniel Smith watercolor ground and the Liquitex clear gesso. The watercolor ground does not feel as gritty as the clear gesso. That's the first thing I noticed there. And then on these two papers, I have white gesso here. It's the Jerry's Autorama World's Greatest Gesso. And then I've got white watercolor ground here. And these two feel very similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a few experiments, do a couple little paintings on these papers, and see how different they behave. I had this painting I did of a bird's nest back for Inktober, and I thought this would be fun, a really fun one to try here. I'm going to use my Winsor Newton watercolors. By the way, these have been a really fantastic price on Amazon. I ordered another set, so hopefully the deal is not too good to be true when it comes, but I will link that down below just in case you're curious. I did originally paint these with these Viviva color sheets, but I thought it would be just easier to do these with regular watercolors since probably that's what most people have. I'm going to go ahead and sketch with a pen here, and I'm just going to, I thought it'd also be kind of neat if I did this and maybe added some red berries on the exterior of the nest. I thought that would also be really cool, so I'm just going to start by drawing an egg shape, and then another egg shape, and then maybe kind of more of a circular egg shape. And I'm just going to kind of do a scribbly nest. Maybe put some berries though. I might add some more. Just want to get a few in there, get a little bit of an idea. So these are just like gessoed index pages from a novel that I didn't really care for, so it was what I bought used. But the yellow, I'm not too precious about this because, you know, the yellowing of the paper there, I would say it is not a really, you know, high quality book. It might be, it's probably acidic. So I'm just playing with this. I thought this would actually also be kind of cool to do for like, I'll set this here so you can see it. If we were doing like Christmas cards, you could do like a wreath instead of a nest if you wanted to. I think that would look really cute. Oh, I do not like drawing on top of the gesso though with a pen. I feel like it's gonna be, you know what? I'm not gonna do any more drawing on top of that nest because this gesso is really rough. I could sketch it in with a colored pencil or something, but I don't want to do that with the pen because I think I'm gonna ruin the nib. So now let's go in and see how they behave differently. I think I will start with a number 8 round. Let me use, I'm going to try some of this Viridian. Let's see how this does. Now, Viridian's a very granulating color. Let's see how it does. This is the watercolor ground. I don't necessarily think it's going to granulate too well on this, but I don't know, it might. Let's take that, add it with like a little bit of indigo. The indigo is very overpowering. The colors are a little bit different in that new Winsor Newton set. It's kind of neat though. I kind of, this is also really thin paper. And maybe it will granulate a little bit because, I'll try some of this aqua as well. Because this ground seals the surface, so. So theoretically, there shouldn't be a lot of seepage. There shouldn't be really any color getting to the back of the paper. Let's let's try it on the clear gesso. Let's see how that goes, just with the Viridian first. And this is PG-18. That color is not in the new set. They have like 2 or 3 cadmium-free colors of their new range. I think they're using kind of cheaper colors, but the price was like $44 on Amazon, so I'm like, you know, I can't resist that. I'm going to give that a try and see. It's, you know, it's not behaving all that different. Oh, you know what? There's a little bit more movement, though. I can see, like, that paint is pushing against this paint. I'm surprised it seems to be taking the paint all right. I'm also noticing less buckling. And I'm not seeing, like there I can see the texture of the brush strokes. I'm not seeing texture over here of the brush strokes yet, so that'll be really interesting. Alright, I'm going to do some, I think I'll start with some raw sienna here. Really nice crisp brush strokes. Do that over here. I really kind of want to just hit that on the edge of the eggs and let the color spread out. I think I will do that because I think that would look really cool. Yeah, I like that. The color spread a little bit. We'll do it over here too. And go with some burnt sienna. I have refilled my colors in this palette from tubes as well. And added other Winsor Newton colors I had to the mix. I like letting those colors spill out. I think this is going to look really cool, actually. I'm not really seeing the benefit of having the transparent watercolor ground on this. I think that the clear gesso is doing just as well. I think the difference might be, though, this is, I think, going to be gentler on your brushes than the clear gesso. The clear gesso definitely has some grit to it, and I think that would maybe damage your, definitely damage your brushes, especially if you like to use natural hair brushes. I'm liking the look of it, though. I don't think I'm going to paint it as densely as the last one. Although, you know, now I'm thinking the colors are a little bit more vivid on the watercolor ground side. I don't know if I necessarily know that if I wasn't comparing them side by side. And they do have a little bit of, you know what, I'm wondering, I want to look at the back. Let's look at the backs real quick and see what the backs. Oh, this is going to drip, but I'm just going to flip it. Nothing, no color coming through on the back of the watercolor ground. No, nothing coming back on the gesso either. I'm going to get a paper towel. I'm wondering if I need to drink up a little bit of that puddle there. So I'm going to set my dry brush in there, just kind of blot that. It seems like I might be getting a more even dry over here and more puddling over here. Maybe? It's so hard to tell because, I mean, that could just be the difference of how I'm applying the color. And that color is looking a little more vibrant to me. I don't know how it's looking on camera for you guys, but I'm going to take some burnt umber here. Burnt sienna. I think I'll use a Q-tip to do the berries. It'll just be easier and give me a better result, I think. Or you could use an eraser, a new eraser, a pencil eraser. That would work as well. Alright, we'll have to let the eggs dry before we do any speckling on them. So I'm going to grab a Q-tip. I always have them handy because they're so useful. I'm just going to wet it. And let's see, what shade of red do I want to use? I've got a nice crimson. It's permanent alizarin crimson, I believe. Got like a pyrrole red, and I've got a permanent rose. I think I will go... I'll see how the crimson works. Just wet my Q-tip and just dip it. Swirl it in the pan there. I need to get a tube of that. I don't have any of that left. Oh, you know what? I might vary it though, because this looks, I think it would look nicer to have some other colors. That's pretty though. I think that would be a pretty Christmas card actually. Once we have it all done. Now I've noticed that I don't think the colors bleed so much on the watercolor ground, because like I'm going right up next to wet color and I'm not getting too much of an awful bleed. In fact, it's kind of a pleasing look. I think these are actually pretty sweet looking. They're really kind of charming, I think. Now let's see, if I want to put a berry in an area that's wet, let's see what happens. Not too much actually. Gosh, I'm not thinking they're all that different. Alright, let's give this a dry and see how it dries. I probably should have like pasted this down, mounted this on like a piece of mat board, or maybe even just taped it down before I gessoed it. But I had a bunch of, I just want to have a bunch ready to experiment with, so I just was laying down on my table and painting them. I'm also curious to see if the color dulls as it dries. Now I'm getting some rough edges there. I probably should have made sure that was dry before I painted on the berries. So it's going to be really interesting to see if the vibrancy of the color changes at all here as I'm drying them. Alright, let's take a look at what we have now. This is the gesso. This is the watercolor ground. This is the gesso. I see a little bit more of a variation in color, but not a huge difference. So I think what I'm going to do now is maybe do a little bit of shading on the eggs. It's easy to tell the difference between the watercolored ground and the gesso by feel, because the gesso is so much rougher. I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow on these eggs in back. Maybe reshape that a little bit. Don't want to use too much water because I don't want to lift up what I did before. That seems fine. It's a pretty wonky looking egg though, but I mean, hey, it's fine. Now over here we'll do the same. I think it's a little bit easier to glaze on the watercolor ground, probably just because it's a smoother surface. I probably should be using flat brush for this. I didn't have any bleeding of color to the back side of the paper, and this is thin paper, so that's good on either example. Actually, I think these are going to be cute. I love that this says A Quiet Life there, and this one says Reawakening. I think that's kind of cool. That's one of the reasons I chose these book pages. Wondering if I can lift up that splotch of paint there and make it a little softer, and yes I can. So that's good. It's very workable. Lifting out highlights. I wonder if you can here. Yeah, you can lift out highlights. That's good to know. Alright, let's do another layer of our little branches. I'm going to start off with a little bit of raw sienna again. I like that yellow. It doesn't seem to be disturbing what's underneath. I only did one coat too. But that seems to be adequate. At least for a quick sketch like this anyway. Let the hairs on the dagger splay a little bit and get a little bit of a natural texture. Kind of messy. All right, I think I'll do a liner brush and some darker color. Maybe I'll do, I could add ultramarine blue to that color, but you know what, since I'm kind of playing with new stuff, let's see what this color, I think this might be like a, what is that? Yeah, no, I don't like that's like a sepia. Let's do, you know what, I think I'll actually just move a little bit of that black in there. With which is pretty close to a sepia, but I can control the amount of black in there. A few little I find that well, I guess it's alright. I find that the my brush, ironically, on the rougher surface of the clear gesso versus the watercolor ground, the clear gesso, even though it was rougher, I'm still finding my liner to work a little bit better on that. I didn't expect that. I want to get a little bit of green in here. I think I'll take this is olive green, I do believe. Do a little olive green. The sap green's a little weak in Winsor Newton. It's just a little bit too springy. I want to get a little bit of, do a little green in the berries, the branch would have the berries hooked to it. Maybe I'll do some little leaves while I'm at it. I'll try some leaves with this dagger brush. It might be a little big, but we're going to give it a try. Got plenty of that color out there. That's actually doing they're a little big, but it's working great on the gesso. This is great. You can save yourself a few bucks. The Liquitex clear gesso is what I love to use under pastels or colored pencils. Gives it just a perfect amount of grit. And it is cheaper than the Daniel Smith watercolor ground, which is quite pricey, in my opinion. I kind of should have done this on like a you know what, if I had cut this down and mounted it onto a card base, like either a thick heavyweight cardstock or, I mean, I might as well do a thick heavyweight cardstock and not waste watercolor paper, then I could, I don't know if that's dry under there or not, then that would make such a sweet Christmas card, I think. Actually, make a sweet card for any occasion. It's kind of like a wintry, just a sweet little wintry card. Okay, I like that. Let's do that over on the watercolor ground side and see how that works. Okay. Okay, you know what? I think it does paint a little bit better on the watercolor ground side. It does seem to like flow a little bit easier. I feel like the application of paint is a little bit more even. And it seems to absorb a little bit more evenly, which I would expect. I mean, it's a product meant for that. I'm able to get sharper shapes from my brush. And I'm able to paint a little smaller for some reason. Maybe because I'm not fighting the texture, which I didn't really feel like I was on that, but maybe I was. I have to say that it's been a pleasurable experience painting on both of these surfaces. But these little stroke leaves are a little bit easier to do on the watercolor ground surface. For what it's worth. Worth getting an extra bottle of product? I don't know about that. But I was really curious because I was in a little art supply shop and it's like, you know what, I always wanted to try this. And I've been using the white watercolor ground as kind of like a magic undo button. So I'm like, well, I'll give this a try. Why not? That's what I like little art supply shops for. It's like, you know, you wanna support a small business, you see something that you've been curious about, maybe you wouldn't pay that much online, but you know, I like the look of that one better though, I think. Okay. I'm gonna go in and add a little shadow around the eggs. I like that I can still see some of that lettering through. I think I'll use this brush for the shading. A little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of that black. I usually don't use black, but I figure I usually don't use watercolor ground and gesso, so I'm just gonna go with the flow here. I wonder if I can shape that egg a little bit. I have a little bit too big. I think I'd like to make that a little bit more rounded, less pointy. These are all transparent, so you still will see some of that book page underneath, which I really like. These are fast, man. You can paint up a whole batch of these for like, for cards. Or for a holiday fair or something. All right, I want to feather it out, so I'm just going to kind of like loosely just kind of feather out. Now, I'm thinking I still want to go a little bit darker next to the eggs. I'm going to go back to that number 8 round. I'm going to go right in with the black, I think. Yeah, I'm going to put a little brown in there. I feel like it's just a little too harsh. Black on its own. And now let's see if it will blend out just wet into wet. Not a lot. It definitely doesn't want to move like it would on paper. This is a clear gesso one right here, by the way. I'm more impressed than I thought I would be with the clear gesso. I thought that was going to be a like, no dice, you need to buy the real deal. You can't improvise, but gosh, I don't think that's the case. I think you really can. And I'm sure it depends on like how much time and stuff you're going to put into it. Something you're going to do quick like this, it probably doesn't matter a heck of a lot. If you're going to do some big painting, in watercolor, it may be worth it to have the real product because, you know, some other things may become apparent the more you do it. Now, I'm just going to set this one out of the way while I do the, I think I'll just use this brush. I don't think there's much benefit to using the dagger there. The absorbent ground, I think, accepts the paint a little bit better. Like, I don't think I'll need to go back in twice. I think I can do this all in one pass with the absorbent ground. So I think you can control the subtlety of your paint a little bit better on the absorbent ground. But again, it comes down to, is it worth it? You know, is it worth it for you to have two things? Only you can say. Only you can say that. And I'm using Liquitex clear gesso, which is grittier than other brands. I feel like it doesn't seal quite as much as other brands. So if you have another brand of clear gesso, you may find that it's not working out at all. And maybe it will work out. But I feel like other brands of clear gesso I've tried have almost like sealed the surface, almost like a Mod Podge. So if you had like a Mod Podge surface, I don't think that would work. I think that would just seal it too much and your paint would bead up. So it needs to be something that's got a little bit of absorption to it. Okay, let's bring back the gesso one. I think I like the colors on the gesso one better, but it could have been because I went in with 2 layers for the shadow. Okay, let me go over again in some places so that it's a little more fair. You know, because I know if you were going to do a bunch of these, I think you'd be looking for ways to save time. I always like, oh, if I think of a better way or more efficient way, I try to like enable it. Now I am feeling a little bit of buckling. Obviously there's some buckling and there was wrinkling, you know, just from gessoing the paper. Okay, this is working. This is layering pretty well. Yeah, I'm going to say no difference. No difference in that. I can get that more in-depth look with the watercolor ground just by putting another layer of color. All right, let's do some speckling on the eggs. I'm just going to take some burnt sienna here. I'm just going to add it to that mix. That way I know everything is just going to go really well together. Plus, Winsor & Newton's earth tones can be a little bit unimpressive, so layering them up can help. I'm just going to do some little speckling. And yes, I realize it probably makes no sense for there to be a Christmas card with robin's eggs on them because they're probably laying their eggs in the spring. But this isn't reality. This is experimental art. Shall we say, I'm going to do a big speckle on there. Try to just keep them kind of random. And I'm sure I'm not perfectly scientific. I know I'm not perfectly scientific, so. You know, take it all with a little bit of a grain of salt and make your own conclusions. I like the lighter eggs on that one. Okay. I think I want to see how a little highlight would look on this. So let me dry this and then I'll come back and do a little highlight. I've got a few colored pencils here. I've got some Holbein and Prismacolor. And I'm going to start off by doing some just little white highlights on the little berries. Let's see how that works over here. Oh, it works really good on the watercolor ground and on the clear gesso. I think it works a little bit better in the clear gesso because of the extra grit. But they both work really well. So also I want to do a little bit of highlight on the eggs. Oh, this works really good on the watercolor ground. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I really like that. You tweak your colors. I wouldn't go too crazy with the colored pencils on this thin paper because it is thin, but it doesn't take much when you have that grit. And it's working pretty well in this too. You know, I think the clear gesso, because it's rougher, just takes a little bit more pencil more easily, but this is certainly working. I don't think I would recommend the watercolor ground as a base for colored pencils, just because it's more expensive than the clear gesso, and the clear gesso does work a little bit better. But if you already had that and you just wanted to add a little bit of texture on something, I think that would work. I think that would work fine. Zhuzh up the color a little bit. Amazon has had the Holbein hue, the 150 set. Of course, this was I saw this on Monday night, and this video is going up on Wednesday. But at Blick, it's $450 for the 150 set, and it was $320 on Amazon. So if you were looking for those, it's too rich for my blood, but if you were looking for those, they do have a good price on Amazon right now. Well, it's still a lot of money. It's more money than I would spend, but then again, we all have our things, right? We all have our things. I'm not going to tell you to spend your money. You spend it however you like, because it's yours. I'm liking this. I'm liking this sweet little easy illustration. All right, let me maybe do a little bit of green highlighting on the leaves. Oh, look at this. This is interesting. I can see where the gesso wasn't. So look right here. Hopefully that shows up on camera. Can you see how it's a lot lighter? There's like almost like a stripe there, and it's light, and it's just like the color's not vibrant at all, and the color's rich there. That's where my swipe of gesso ended. So, and let's look on the back. Oh, it didn't seep through. Well, you know what? It does kind of start to seep through there on the edge too. So that's really interesting. It does really make a difference. It's not like, you know, in case you were wondering what's the point, well, they just paint on a book page, and that's why you'll have such a dull, such a dull effect, and the paint will seep through, and will probably tear your paper actually. Oh, that's kind of nice if you have the leaves over the nest. The pencil will help it stand out. This pencil is definitely not grabbing on the watercolor ground quite as well. That's all right. That's not really what it's meant to do, but you know, if you're someone like me that likes to do mixed media, I would say stick to the gesso, because I don't think you're getting the benefit from the clear ground here. Now, one other thing, let's do some brown, maybe add some more twigs. I have to keep feeling them to make sure I put them in the right place. So I'm keeping the clear gesso here and the watercolor ground there. I like the texture of the clear gesso. Here I'm seeing the brush strokes from when I applied that, because I think this is not as thick as the white gesso. It is more thin, but it seems to be thicker than the Liquitex, just the way it applied. So, and I use the same brushes, so I just want to keep it as apples to apples as I could. Now let's grab a brown. Let's try this one. This is Sandbar Brown. I probably want to do something a little bit lighter. This is probably good for like if I want little branches and stuff wisping off the edge. A little bit better grip on the clear gesso with the pencils. So I would say if you want to do if you really want to mix the pencil work and the watercolor work, to go with the gesso. I think you're going to get a little more versatility. It's cheaper, and the results I think will be a little bit nicer. I'll do some of this yellow ochre color here. Oh, that works really nice on top of the dark area on the clear gesso. Works pretty well here on the watercolor ground. Not quite as bold, but that's to be expected. It's not as gritty. Let's try like a light creamy color. That's right here. It's Eggshell from Prismacolor. Oh yeah, that's really nice as far as showing up on the over the other colors. Actually, this is so soft. It's working very well on the watercolor ground too. Just kind of get those highlighted little pieces there. Oh, that looks good. I think the colors are richer with the the Liquitex. Now we could go in with a red even. I'm just looking for a nice, oh, kind of like candy apple red. Is that as red as, oh no, this one's a little bit better here. This one is poppy red, Scarlet Lake. We could go in and, if anything needs a little bit of defining. Ooh, doesn't that just really really pack a punch? I'll do that with these are cute. I like these. You know what? I really do. And it's working fine on the watercolor ground. Not as much of a punch, but that's just due to the fact that the paper's, you know, the ground is smoother. But it certainly works, and I think you could definitely throw in, you know, some extra berries if you wanted to. Now, one last thing I think I want to try is maybe just pulling a few, just a few little, loosey-goosey tendrils off the edge. Working fine on the ground, on the clear gesso. Throw in a few more in there if you want. It'll skip over colored pencil because of the waxiness. I like that. I think I'm going to call that one finished. I kind of want to draw attention to those words, A Quiet Life. I like that, so I want to enhance that a little bit. I love the combination of media here. And I think this is absolutely darling, and I hope you give this project a try. This is just going to be a test, but I really like how it came out. If you want a little more highlighting, you can do a little bit of white on the eggshells. I think that would be good. Also, you can add like a, kind of like a little bit of a, just like a soft highlight too. Help to show some of the roundness of it. Kind of hit that highlight in the center. It's kind of a diffused highlight. But I think that's really all I need to do with these. I got the colors ran a little bit here. I could go around with a little bit of a darker red if I wanted to sharpen those up, or like a plum, almost something like this, maybe this raspberry. Especially opposite where you have the highlight if you want to. I mean, it's up to you. You can do as much or as little as you want on these. One other thing I think I'm going to try, but I'll do it off camera because you just watch me paint two of these, is to try this on the white watercolor ground versus the gesso. So I'm going to do that, and I'll come back and show you and then give you my final thoughts. Following up on the white gesso versus white watercolor ground, this is the watercolor ground. This is the gesso. I have to say that I think I give the edge to the watercolor ground in this case. I feel like it did accept the watercolor quite a bit better, and it also accepted the watercolor pencil. I mean the colored pencil fine. So I would say if it comes to white watercolor ground, it is worth getting the white watercolor ground and not using gesso for that. I just felt like the paint absorbed a lot better, and it was just definitely more fit for the job. But when it comes to the clear, I actually preferred the Liquitex clear gesso over the Daniel Smith clear watercolor ground. Now keep in mind, I'm just, the only absorbent ground or watercolor ground I've used has been the Daniel Smith, and I've got the white and the clear. I'm saying, yeah, I would splurge on the white, but I would pass on the clear and I'd go for Liquitex clear gesso. The Liquitex clear gesso is just such an amazing product. If you buy in a larger jug, if you use it quite a bit, it's really not that expensive, and it seems to go quite a ways. It is thinner. So that's my opinion. Just even looking at the texture of my, like, I'm seeing the texture of the watercolor ground here. I'm not seeing any of the texture of the gesso. I'm just seeing my brush strokes, and that's kind of what I want to see. It takes the pencil beautifully on top of the watercolor. As a mixed media artist, I love that. But they both work fine. If you're going to do a lot of colored pencil work and you already have the clear watercolor ground, the transparent watercolor ground, I would say, yeah, it's worth buying a bottle of the clear gesso, the Liquitex clear gesso. And I say Liquitex because I've tried other brands and Liquitex just seems to be superior. Now, this isn't exactly the most in-depth study ever because I don't have all the brands of gesso. I don't have all the brands of watercolor ground, so I can't really go too in-depth. But as far as Daniel Smith, they're a good company. You know, for all their faults, they provide a good quality material. I would say their white is I use it honestly as whiteout. For a lot of, if I make a mistake on a painting, I'm not in love with painting on this, but I have to say this is better than painting on the gesso as far as a watercolor surface, which isn't that surprising. I was quite surprised with the clear. Anyway, I think they're all real cute, honestly. I mean, this was a watercolor on the gesso on scrapbook paper. I think it looks great. I think it, you know, I'm happy with that, but this is better. I would say this looks better. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. If you look at these, you can tell me if you notice a difference. I guess I'll put some still photos up on my Instagram and definitely on my blog. If I don't get it on my Instagram, I'll put it on my blog for sure so you can see. And that's it for today. I've been meaning to do this little comparison for a couple of weeks now, and I hope it helps you decide what's right for you. Hey, if you're in America, have a happy Thanksgiving this week. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a great week anyway. And yeah, we're rolling into the holiday season here officially. So be safe, take care of one another. Why can't I talk today? Spend some time with the people you love and have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.